How do we do? Everybody's good to go on that one? Okay, so moving right along. The next thing we're going to take a look at is this concept of what is a box model, how we wireframe things, and then how we use Google DevTools to inspect the HTML to find out why things aren't, in our mind we're thinking, you know what, that's not lining up where I think it should, I'm not quite sure why. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that once you get into a big project, you've got your CSS and you've got your linked files, but you have like many linked files that may have impacts that are, it's not obvious why you're inheriting a thing. So you use a dev tool and you inspect and you find out where is that style coming from. Somehow I'm getting background pink, but I don't know who's setting it pink, right? So you want to figure out, you want to trace back, well, what CSS file ever asked for background pink, right? So we'll do that. Okay, so backing up, let's talk about the box model and the wireframe idea. Can someone give me your own version of what that means? Even DAs? Anyone?
What was it?
The whole idea of when we say box model or wireframing, like what is it accomplishing?
Responsiveness.
Responsiveness, okay, because our end goal is responsiveness. And if we think about where we want to end up, we can back up and say, well, I'm here now, how am I going to get there?
Is it like blueprinting what you want it to look
Yeah.
like, and then
So it's
figuring
a
out how you're
blueprint.
going to code it?
It's a blueprint to like the building minus the interior decorating, right? It's just the structure, it's just the walls of where things go, right? And then the ultimate colors and fonts and stuff end up being your interior decorating, but it's like a blueprint for a building, yeah. Any other analogies that are helpful? Okay, so let's take a look at an example of a box frame, and let's take a look at the dev tools. Okay, so here's where we're going to start. We're going to use divs again. So really simple file. Let me just have you stare at this first, and then we'll come back to coding it, and you're going to try it out. But in the document, there's a div that contains a div that contains a div. So it's like div has a child that has a grandchild, all right? And then ignore the style on it for the moment. We'll come back to that. So trying to remember what browser has that. Here we go. Okay, so this is that. Blue background, level 0 is the body, and then we have a div, level 1, and then another div, level 2, and another div, level 3. But my question is, like, what's this other stuff? What are these other boundaries? So we're going to talk about on a thing, a div or whatever, that div has what's called a margin, and that's essentially the space between it and the thing above it. It also has padding. Padding says I want to have white space inside the div before the first letter appears, padding. And then we have border. Border is if you want to put an actual box around the div so you can actually see the boundaries of the div. I highly recommend doing a border pixel 1 on your wireframe because it shows visually where things are, and you can take it out later. But as a dev tool, just border pixel 1 and then use that as your templating of where things go. So having said that, this is where we want to get to. In Chrome, if you, a couple of things, let me back up one of the things that can happen. When I hold down the refresh button, it refreshes, right? But I didn't see a drop-down menu. Did anybody see a drop-down menu? I didn't see a drop-down menu. Watch this. As soon as you go into DevTools, you hit Inspect. Okay, it popped up on the other window, so let me grab it and I'll bring it in here. Okay, so this is your DevTool environment, and it's kind of cool because you would ideally have 2 monitors. And so you would look at that and this at the same time, because when you're hovering over the HTML, it's hovering it for you over there as well. I don't know if this is a very good way of showing you that, but do you see how it's making a reference to it? Okay, why do I care? Okay, if I go over to the other side, I get an object viewer that says for this particular object, the CSS is talking to it, giving it a padding of 6, a border of 1 line, and a margin of 4. And as you hover, you can trace down where that's coming from. Okay, let me do another one. So I'm at the body, right? Level 1, I'll hit this first div, I'm going to click on it, and that becomes the one that's here. So look at the style, div style padding 3. Well, that's what it says, padding 3. Do you see it right here? In the little box right here? And then it says margin 2. Well, there you go, it says margin 2. And then border 1 pixel. Border 1 pixel. So this is the actual letters inside the div, and the div turned out to be this size. Immediately around the letters is padding, around the padding is the border, around the border is the margin. This becomes important when things aren't lining up correctly and you don't know why. You come here and you figure it out. Now, I said that question about what about when I don't know where things are coming from because that pink background is like not what I want. So here's the stack of styles. This is kind of interesting because you can actually come over and turn off and on individual styles and see the impact that would have. Like you're trying to figure out what's broken. You can turn off certain styles that are being read in, and you can turn them back on, figure it out if that's what's wrong. I'm missing the computed. I don't know why I'm not seeing the computed tab. Hold on, why am I not seeing computed? I guess maybe this is computed. I expect to see the word computed there, but styles. Okay, well anyway, if you look at the stack here, it says inheriting from this CSS file, my CSS file.css, the background color of blue. So that's coming from that external CSS file. But there's a style sheet in the document that's giving this div a thing, and then the element has a style tag that's giving it those things. So at the end of the day, when you're trying to figure out how did the background get pink, this is where you could go, and you could actually trace it back and figure out not only what it's set to, but where it got set. Did it get set on the style tag or style attribute? Did it get set in the style block at the top, or did it get set in a file somewhere? And you could figure out where that is coming from. Does that make sense? Clear as clay? Okay. Okay, so this is what I'd like you to do, is to go ahead and build an example like this where you've got your 3 divs and you set your own padding, margin, and border width. And then come in here and see that you can prove mathematically that they're the same thing as what you expected. All right, so let me flip over. You can go ahead and create a new blank page for this. So the things that I want you to keep exercising are CSS properties like padding, margin, border, and those are the things that will impact that little viewing window on the inspect. The way you get on Google to get to that is you right click and hit inspect on the actual document at the location you want to start with. And that will, oh, remember the drop down menu thing? Let me, before I forget. I remember I said that I was looking, I couldn't see a drop down. Let me show you one more thing. As soon as you open that dev window and you hit the refresh and you hold it down, it gives you a new window that you don't have as a user, you have it as a developer. And it has to do with normal reload is what a user gets. Hard reload and empty cache, I'll end up doing this one, empty cache and hard reload. Sometimes you actually save your change, you hit refresh, you don't know why, but your change never grabs. It's because the browser has a cached copy of it, and it's not even asking the server for the latest copy of it. So as a dev, every once in a while you may have to hit empty cache and hard reload, but this window isn't even there until you open up that dev window. And on Mac, you open up the dev window with Option Command I, or right click or click and then inspect, and that'll get to it as well. All right. But what I'd like you to do is to create 3 divs, come up with your own padding, margin, and border, and then go to that dev viewer and actually confirm that you can match up those settings, padding, margin, and border in that little window. Make sense? And if you have questions, I'm here, T's are here to help out.